Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Covert, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for pressing play today. I have got an amazing interview for you today, and this is one of my visionary women spotlights, Kristy Norbert of the Empower Her Network. And oh my goodness, you guys, this is not necessarily a light conversation, but it's an important one, and it's one that we need to be having. And Kristy shares with us about how she came to start Empower Her Network, which is an agency in the United States that helps women who have been labor or sexually trafficked. And yes, this is happening in our country, in America, and it's affecting so more women than we can count. And Kristy and her organization are doing a great job of supporting these women and helping them move into and empower them to be living the life that they want to be living. And so, like I said, it's not always an easy conversation when we talk about, but we're also digging into how Kristy came to be doing what she's doing, how she came to know that this was her purpose. And she shares a lot of really good practical advice of how to stay connected with your inner voice, which is what I love to talk about. And you guys know that. And to that point, I just wanted to share with you today, in case you didn't know, I am an inner voice coach. And I do think that most of you know that, but I think that it's worth sharing again, because I want you to know that I believe that each and every woman, every single one of you that is listening, is put here on this earth for a purpose, for a reason. You matter. And sometimes I know it can feel that you look around and you feel like you're just living a life that you were never expecting to live, like that you're settling, or that you're not really passionate about what you do, or you're not connected with how you're living. And that is what I do. I help women who are feeling like that come to a place where they know what they're passionate about, where they know what their purpose is, where you begin to know internally why you're here and you're inspired to take the action necessary to propel you forward in the life that you do want to be living. I teach women how to listen to their inner voice and how to take action on that. And so if this sounds like you, if this is resonating with you, if you're feeling that feeling of being stuck or wanting more clarity around your life, or wanting to say, yeah, I would love to be a visionary, but what does that even mean? I would love to talk with you. And so I am going to put a link in the podcast app and the show notes to my discovery call page. And what a discovery call is just basically a 20-minute phone chat with me where we talk about where you are and why you're feeling the way you're feeling and what I can do to help you feel different. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's totally free. The link is kellycovert.com/discovery, and you can click it right in your podcast app, even while you listen. So please do that. Do it for you. Do it for you, because you don't have to do it on your own. And I'm here to support you. So let me read you really quickly Kristy's bio before we move into the interview. Appreciating that circumstance is all that separates her reality from those of marginalized populations. Kristy has spent 18 years leveraging her social worker background as an advocate for the vulnerable among us. Empower Her Network benefits from all Kristy learned and experienced during her time as Executive Director of Boys Hope, Girls Hope of Baltimore and Her Future Coalition. She runs transparent programs with the goal of building up those in need towards a day where they can support themselves. Kristy's is a returned Peace Corps volunteer, licensed clinical social worker, volunteer field hockey coach at Connecticut College, private clinician, and co-founder and executive director of Empower Her Network. Kristy enjoys spending time in any adventure with her husband, her 2 boys, and her dog. She lives in New London, Connecticut, and so we had a lovely connection too over our freezing cold weather. So anyway, we're going to get right to the interview with Kristy. I know you guys are going to love it. You're going to be inspired and moved by what she is sharing with us today. So relax and enjoy. Kristy, Norbert, I am so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. And we were talking before we got started, and I was saying how I came across your website. I don't even remember how. And it's sort of, I sent myself an email and it sat in my inbox for a while. And just the other day I saw it again. I was like, I'm going to follow through with that. And now you're here. And I'm so excited. So I thought what we would do first is have you share what the Empower Her Network is. This is something that you co-founded, and what is it? Like, what are you guys doing with Empower Her Network?
Sure. Empower Her Network works with survivors of human trafficking here in the States, helping them to rebuild their lives and really walk down a path of true independence. We started in the summer. We founded Empower Her Network in the summer, myself and a woman, Abby Fabiashi, who were involved with human trafficking overseas at another NGO. And we really found the need to take the same principles and tenets that we were doing overseas in India and Thailand and Nepal and bring them back to the States, because we found that trafficking is happening right in our own backyard. And we really need to address it. And the way we wanted to address it was to fill a gap in services that currently exist.
So, first of all, I feel like when I first went on your website and I read about what you were doing, I was shocked that this is happening in the U.S. And I feel that I'm probably not the only person who's surprised. So can you just give us a brief sort of overview of what you mean when you say human trafficking and why that's sort of this hidden problem in the States?
Yes. So human trafficking, by definition, is modern-day slavery. It involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain any type of labor or commercial sex act. So worldwide, this affects 20.9 million people. In the United States, it's estimated that it's about 1.5 million people, that includes children, that are at risk of being trafficked. So it's a tremendous problem here. I think, I say those numbers and I kind of want to hesitate. I don't even want to throw numbers out because no one really knows, because this isn't a reportable, this isn't something that people are reporting. And the people that do report are very few and far between, because it's really dangerous to report what's happening. And, the cycles of abuse, once you're in an abusive situation, it's really hard to get out of. Yeah. So the other thing, Kelly, that is awful about this is that it generates billions of dollars of profits. It's, second to only drug trafficking is the most profitable form of transnational crime. So it's a huge profitable industry as well for the traffickers, which is very, very sad. But it's also, it's treating women as commodities, and it's just a huge human rights violation.
Oh, yeah. And, one of the things that really struck me when I was looking at your website is the kind of woman who is vulnerable. And it's not, honestly, it wasn't who I thought. I mean, there was one woman that you shared that is one of your clients, which you do anonymously, that she is from Senegal and she has a law degree and can speak 4 languages. Yeah. This is not the kind of woman that I would think is vulnerable, but talk to us about how this happens.
Yeah, so I'm really careful to share any one particular story, just because, not only do I not want to exploit or re-exploit any of our women, I don't want to re-exploit any of their stories. So when I talk about their stories, I want to talk about them as like almost composite stories. And so a combination of a couple different women together, just so in case they were ever listening to this, they didn't feel exploited. So the type of woman that is trafficked is usually a really, really ambitious, motivated, hardworking woman that has had a set of circumstances that is beyond her control. And she is forced or tricked or coerced into a different lifestyle. So a really, I don't want to say popular, but a thing that happens quite a bit is that someone comes into a woman's life that, they have a relationship with, usually a man, and they are promised a different path forward. So the woman that you were just talking about was promised a path to come to the United States and get her graduate degree. And she that's what she wanted to do. There was no way to do that in the country that she was living. So when she came here, she was tricked. She was labor trafficked here and was forced to work in a factory for less than $1 a day. All of her documents were taken, and she was there until the FBI raided the factory and found out that women were trafficked there. So these are women who they don't know what they're getting into all the time. And if they do know what they're getting into, it's a choice of having a job or not having a job, having a home or not having a home in many cases, having a potential future and making money for their family, putting food on the table. And then, in time, they find out that they're in a living hell, and it's really, really hard to get out. And it's really, like you said, it's a problem that people don't know about. And when you do know about it, you don't want to talk about it because it's so heavy and so difficult that it's much easier to turn away from a problem of this magnitude.
I agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I think that sometimes as white women who are privileged, we're not having to worry about the house over our head or feeding our families. We need to have these conversations. We need to bring this into our awareness because that's how we begin to create change.
Yeah, I've said that so many times when I sit with a woman. I really believe this, and I tell them that, is that there is no difference between me and that woman except our circumstance. Mm-hmm. And that, my days of being relevant will be numbered if I don't notice that as a privileged white woman who is aware of that. I have to be able to live like that and to actually believe that if I was in her seat and she was in my seat, that she would notice me, that she would care about me, that she would do what she could do to make my life a little bit better if I didn't have a voice. Mm. And so I think that you're right. I think that it's really, really easy as white women who have a lot of things, have everything that we need to, stay in that world. And I did that for a really long time. I mean, by training, I'm a social worker, but this issue was even hard for me. This was something that I even was like, oh man, torture, human trafficking, the dehumanization of a human being. I don't want to believe it. And, how dare I turn away from it for so long when it's just the worst thing a human being can do to another human being.
Mm. Well, so let's talk about your own fears around that. I mean, to step up and say, I'm going to create something in the United States that's going to support and help women who have been so tragically used. I mean, where did you find your courage to do that? How did you push through those fear points?
I don't know if the word is fear that I had around it. I think I have always known, anyone in my family or any of my friends say, as soon as you tell me I can't do something or challenge me to do something, ever since I was a little girl, I'm going to do it. I have always been that person that was like, well, if I don't do it, who will do it? And I watched a movie in third grade. It was called God Bless the Child. And I watched it, I think it was like an after school special. I watched it in religious education on a Sunday. And it's all about this social worker who came in, and it's an awful, awful movie. I don't recommend it because it's so sad and so depressing, and it'll just pummel you down the deepest depression. But for me, the social worker came into this woman's life who was homeless and had a child, and the mother had to make a decision eventually to abandon her child at a playground with this social worker so her child could have a better life. And the movie impacted me so deeply, Kelly, that it was that moment that I was like, I need to be that social worker. Like, this is not right. It's not just that the world is like this. And it just, from then on, that was like, I'm doing something like that. And so my answer was to be a social worker. With your question back to how Empower Her Network started and the fear kind of around that, I don't think I had fear. I think I had tons of excitement and I felt ready. I felt like this is it. Like, if these women, they need someone to get them to the last 10-yard lines of their life. You know, they've had these services, they've lived in a shelter, they've had counseling, they've had legal support. What happens when they want to go back to school? What happens when they want to move out of a shelter? When they want to move out of a shelter and don't have any furnishings to move into a shelter? Move out of a shelter, move into her first apartment. They don't have any furnishings to move into that apartment because they've been in a shelter. Yeah. You know, that it felt like I had to do it. And the stars were kind of aligning. There's a lot of people that started this with me and that believed in providing this gap in services and providing their talents and resources to really get this off the ground.
I love that. It's like when you finally listen, and maybe I shouldn't even say finally, when you listen to your inner voice and the timing is right, you don't have to worry about the how because it reveals itself.
Yeah. I mean, I have to worry about like the grinding and the incredible amount of work and, you know, Googling, how do I file for nonprofit status? But that stuff's, you know, that's just work. That's just anything worthwhile takes a lot of work and grinding out. So that part was a little bit, it wasn't easy, but, you know, it just filled the time and the space. I think that the vision for what Empower Her Network is and what it continuously will be and will grow to be is something that, you know, keeps me going all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that holding on to that vision can be so powerful in any area of our lives, but especially when you feel so pulled to it, like you have for your whole life. You said you were 8 years old. I mean, how long do you feel like you held this vision in your heart, maybe not fully realized until it happened?
So, in all fairness, I think that I have always known that I am meant to work with the most vulnerable and marginalized people on this earth. And that is what I've done. It's where, you know, people will subtly or not so subtly be like, oh my gosh, the work you do is so hard. It's so amazing. I'm going to pray for you. And that's wonderful. And I am really grateful for that. But this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's always what I'm supposed to have done. So whether I was, you know, in Baltimore working as a social worker in the city and removing children, which was an awful experience, or working with disadvantaged youth who had a terrible set of circumstance but had incredible potential, or, you know, I lived overseas. I was in the Peace Corps for a little bit and living in a village that, you know, I think gave me a whole new sense of what poverty actually meant, and working with the people in the village to say, hey, I know that I'm this white woman, but the whole goal of my Peace Corps there, I was the third volunteer they ever had in this village, was to say, I'm not any different than you, like just because I'm American, and let's spend this time together to figure that out. So I think I've always meant to give a voice to those who don't have a voice and who aren't seen by society. So Empower Her Network felt really, really natural in the sense of, my word, there are people who have had such significant and severe trauma and been trapped and been living in such horrendous conditions that of course they can't speak for themselves. Of course they can't come out and say, this is my story, nor should we be asking them to do that. So I do feel like that is definitely listening to that inner voice, because I do have that. I've had a wonderful life that I've been able to be filled enough that I'm able to turn around and say, you know, let's help them. And I think Michelle Obama said something like that, right? Like, my co-founder would say this is trading your problems up, but Michelle Obama said something like, when you've worked really hard and done really well, she says something like, when you walk through that doorway of opportunity, you don't slam it shut. You reach back and you give people that same opportunity that you had. And I think that's really important. Not that I've ever had anything comparable to what the women we work with have. But my word, we should be opening the doors for the people that are trying to walk through them.
Yeah. Let's use what we've been given.
Yeah.
That's what I hear you say. It's so interesting that you said that you feel like you've always known, because one of the questions that I wrote down before we got on today was, have you always known? And my question to you is, I feel that a lot of women are like, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that one of the key things for us to be able to tap into is like to know what it feels like to know. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could explain that, for you, what does it feel like to know you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing?
So I think ever since I remember, well, actually, probably not in like high school or college, maybe even, but ever since I've had a career, I've had these check-ins with myself quite frequently where I feel like I sit down and have a conversation with myself and say, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this right? Should I be, traveling the world and doing this or that? And so I'm always having that conversation with myself. And because I'm always having it, I always know that it feels right and that I'm doing the right thing. And it doesn't feel easy. It feels really, really hard. And it always feels for me like a different path. Like it always feels like society is trying to push me to do this one path and I'm constantly taking this other path. And that is just who I'm supposed to be. So I don't know if I answered your question, except that it's just that constant check-in, check-in with, just what you're talking about, like the inner voice and letting yourself be used in the way you're supposed to be used.
And I think what I hear you saying is that for you, if it feels too comfortable, that's probably not the direction you're supposed to be going.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to be comfortable financially. But if I'm not being challenged, if my brain is not being challenged and my spirit's not being challenged, and I'm not trying to make my kids' world and their kids' world a little bit better, then I wouldn't be sleeping well at night, or I wouldn't be able to feel the joy that I feel and the sadness that I feel. So it's part of making yourself whole, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you have, you said you have these conversations with yourself regularly, like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? But do you have any other practices that you use in your life on a daily or, weekly, regularly basis that really support you in staying connected to that true place within you?
I think one thing that keeps me grounded and true is actually pulling away from your passion. And I mean in the sense that if I am going to work for 8 or 10 hours a day or 4 hours a day, whatever it is, that I need to occupy my brain with something else during that other time. Now, luckily, I have 2 kids and a dog and a husband that do that pretty well.
Oh, yeah. A family can do that.
Yeah, but I think what I'm trying to say is that when I go somewhere or when I'm with family or when I'm reading a book or doing something else, as soon as I stop that and I come back to think about things from Empower Her Network, my conviction gets stronger. It's almost like, oh my gosh, I miss my heart. Yeah. I miss what I'm supposed to be doing. So that is hard to do when you start something and you get so sucked in and you want to do it 24 hours a day. And so I have been forcing myself to walk away from it because it almost makes me better at it.
Oh, that is such good advice. Oh my gosh, you guys that are listening, I really want you to soak this in. Taking time away from the thing that you love, from the thing that you're passionate about, is going to give you a renewed sense of energy and motivation when you come back to it. That is gold right there. And I think that you're right. I think that especially if you're the kind of person like me, like when I am doing something new, I'm like all in. Yeah. I'm like all or nothing. That's my personality. It's hard to pull away from that because you're loving it so much. So, how do you do that? Especially at the beginning. I think that's what I'm really interested in, is in the beginning stages of the creation of this.
Yeah.
How did you force yourself away?
Well, I don't know if I was extremely healthy in the beginning of it with forcing myself away. I'm getting better every day. I am similar to you. I feel very obsessed with things when I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And if I'm not doing it, nobody else will do it. And I need to do it now. And in the beginning, I definitely felt obsessed with doing as much as I could all the time. But there reaches a point that, again, I'm not doing the best for Empower Her Network if I'm just researching the same thing over and over again and it's 2:00 in the morning. I mean, that's not helpful either. So I don't know if I did that well in the first couple months even, because I was very excited and very much like, oh my gosh, we're doing something that's so beyond us and that will last beyond us. And that felt okay too. I mean, that even looking back on it, I don't feel like I missed out on anything.
Well, I love this conversation because it's about finding, and I'm not a big fan of the word balance, so I use lots of different words, but it's like the balance point of that. And knowing, balance is not, I spend 8 hours at work and then I spend 8 hours at home with my family and then I sleep 8 hours. Like that's not balance. But balance is recognizing there's an ebb and flow to where your energy is going. Yeah. And that it will eventually even out. You said you have a family, you have kids. There are times, I'm sure, where you are 100% with your kids. And knowing that there's an ebb and flow there, I think allows us to accept where we are in any given moment.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that what you're saying takes time and experience, because I don't think I would have known that even 10 years ago. And I think now I'm able to say, hey, I'm going to work really hard for 3 days straight. And I know on day 4, I'm going to be an awesome mom and an awesome wife. And we're going to kill it this weekend. I just think it took me a while to get to this point of knowing that it's okay to work really hard and it's okay not to work.
Yeah, it's so good. And I want to dig into this question of family just a little bit, because I feel that, how old are your kids?
5 and 9.
5 and 9. So they're little. Yeah. I have 2 boys that are almost 15, which makes me feel very old, and 11. And I feel that I see among women with kids oftentimes that they use their family as a reason to not do the thing that is pulling them. Yeah. And can you talk about how you found the balance point? Because even as I say that, I feel like a little constricted, I don't want to call people out for using their kids as an excuse to not do something, because parenting is important. But also, I think that we do that sometimes.
Yeah, I think the question that I want to even ask is do men ever do that? You know what I mean? Do men ever have that question or that
That's a very good question
of why they didn't go back to work or why they chose this profession? I mean, the answer is no, right? They don't. That's what they've done for generations. And so for me is that I've never been in a position that I thought somebody should be supporting me. Yeah. I thought, I'm doing this. I have a wonderful partner, but I am able to do it by myself as well. And so for me, that's always been the case. And that's always been a big part of who I am and who I'll always be, is that I want to be independent. And I want my kids to also see that that's the deal. Like you're supposed to be exactly who you're supposed to be, whether you stay home or you work all the time or whatever it is. You're all of those things.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to know yourself in that scenario. So for me, I have always said I am a better mother when I am working. That's me, because I need those things that I get from work, from my own work, from, I'm a musician, from playing. I need that in me as fuel and energy to be able to pour out into my kids. And if I'm not getting that, it doesn't matter that I'm home with them all day. I'm being a sucky mom because I'm like not in my best place.
Yes, no, I can appreciate that. I stayed home with my first child for the first couple months. And my husband would come home from work and I'd meet him and I'd just hand him the child and I'd be like, I can't do this. This is not for me. And I didn't do that again.
Well, and I think this is such an interesting conversation in the context of Empower Her Network, right? Because there's all of these ideas of what motherhood should look like, of what being a woman should look like, of what being ambitious should look like as a woman. And the whole, like, what the women that are coming in through Empower Her Network, it's turning that idea on its head, that you have no idea what anything should look like unless you decide that from within you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that's a really, really almost different thing that we do at Empower Her Network, that we say the destination, her choice, right? So she's already been disempowered so much in her life and so many choices taken away from her that's the last thing we would ever want to do, is make it about our agenda. Like, say, you know what I think you should do is I think you should go be an administrative assistant and you would make this much money and do that. That's not who we are.
Yeah.
We want to sit down and listen to what they really do want to do. What are the barriers in place that the reason that they can't get there, and then walk with them and provide the resources to help them get there. One woman said to me, I said, "What's your ultimate dream?" And she kind of looked at me and like laughed, like silly Kristy. Like, she's like, what every woman wants. I want to be free and independent. I want to be able to pay my own bills and take care of my kids and don't want to ask for help. I just want to be on my own and live my own life. And I was like, yeah, she's right. That is what we all want. And we all want to be accepted and loved and be authentic and have the sense of belonging. And that's what they want too.
What do you think is the best lesson that you have learned from the women that you work with?
One thing that continuously surprises me and that also really excites me for the future of Empowering Her Network is the connection and the need for connection from the women that we serve, or the survivors, and the women who are involved in the network, meaning some funders or community supporters. So I think for me, when I go to a fundraiser or an event and I tell a story and people are like, oh my word, I can't believe that exists. It's so sad. What can I do to help? But I think what I have found that is just mind-blowing to me is that the women survivors want to know who these women are, and they want that connection, and they want to not feel alone. And so that's the idea of the network, right? Like, we want to build a group of women who want to support each other and continuously open those doors for each other, because there's many things that we can all offer each other. And so that's been really, really surprising to hear all different types of women have this yearning for this connection and belonging to all different types of women, and to say, again, circumstance is the only thing that's different than us. We're exactly the same. So it's beautiful. And that's why I get really excited about where this can go, with the idea of that being kind of at the center.
Yeah, I got goosebumps when you were saying that, because it does go back to this piece of that. I think when it comes down to it, we just want to know that we belong, and that we're part of something. And regardless of where we are. Yeah. And what it also makes me think of is, as humans walking around in, our little insulated worlds, how can we be better at that? Like, how can I let someone know that they belong? In what little way or big way can I say something or make a connection that might have that impact on someone, even if it's just for a second? And I think if we think about this more in our own worlds, we can be world changers too.
Yeah.
So what I would love, Kristy, is why don't you let my listeners know how they can learn more about Empower Her Network and also support you guys?
Sure. So our website that I'm sure will be on your link as well, it's empowerhernetwork.org. My contact information is on there. I think one way to support us is when you go on our website, we actually in November launched what we call the empowerment bracelet. I don't know if you had a chance to see that. I will send you one, Kelly.
I did. I love it. It's so beautiful.
So what that is it's a bracelet that was created by Lisa Salzer from Lulu Frost, a famous designer. She went to India and worked with survivors of human trafficking and created this bracelet that it's orange, representing, to fight the oppression against women, is the band. And then the symbol on the bracelet is the Daya symbol, and it represents victory of light over darkness, knowledge over ignorance, and hope over despair. And then there's a secret message that says free forever or forever free on the underside. So you can go on the website and purchase one of those. 100% of the profits go to Empower Her Network and the domestic survivors that we support. And it's a beautiful symbol to wear. I mean, you just talked about how to continuously connect. It's a really simple thing, but I get messages all the time from people even wearing the bracelet and looking down and realizing, hey, we're not alone. There are people that are living in this darkness, and this is the light. This is, we can help with this way out. So I think talking about it as well, being aware of human trafficking and, places like Empower Her Network that we're trying to rebuild lives. And I think that's sometimes enough, is just knowing that this exists and caring about it.
Yeah. And being willing to have the conversation.
Yes.
Like we mentioned, like be brave, ladies.
Yeah.
Be brave. And your courage doesn't have to look like going out and starting a nonprofit. It can be that, but maybe your courage is saying to your friend, guess what I heard about on In Her Voice podcast the other day? Mm-hmm. Can you believe this is happening in our country? And go buy a bracelet. And I'm looking at it right now. They're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to buy one.
I'll send you one.
As soon as we get off. They're gorgeous. And that could be a conversation starter also. Mm-hmm. Wear that, give it as a gift, and have that important conversation with the women in your life who you are connected with, and the men, not just the women, and the men, because men can be a part of a solution also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kristy, oh my gosh, this is so good. I just love this so much. So I want to just acknowledge you for what you do in the world. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for acknowledging what it is you've always supposed to be doing. And thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all the work that you do and for even having this topic on your podcast. I think oftentimes people hear, oh man, it's going to be about human trafficking. I don't want to listen to it. But there's just so much hope involved and so much future and so much of ourselves in each one of these stories that it can be filled with joy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always end with one last question for all my guests, and that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice asking of you?
Keep going. I mean, keep going and keep dreaming and keep being truthful.
Well, you're doing a great job at that. And thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this with my listeners. And for you guys that are listening, all of the links that we mentioned today will be in the show notes and also right in whatever podcast app you're listening to. So you can click right through, go get yourself a bracelet. You can donate. We're going to have a link right to where you can donate also to Empower Her Network, so you can also be making a difference in this world. Thank you, Kristy.
Thank you, Kelly.
Wow. I'm so thankful for people like her, for people like Kristy, who are willing to have the hard conversations and to say what needs to be said. I'm so filled with gratitude. And I hope that you guys were able to take in the heaviness of this and also the hope that is there, the hope that Empower Her Network and Kristy and all of the women that are working with her are instilling in these women. And I really want you guys to go check out the website, empowerhernetwork.org. I'm going to link to that. Go donate, go get yourself a bracelet. This is something that we can all get behind in a really easy and comfortable way on our part. And so let's have the uncomfortable conversations and then do something about it. Do something about it. So I hope you enjoy this. Please share it with someone who you think would benefit from hearing it, or who you would like to have a conversation like this with, because that's how we change the world. And guess what, you guys? When you change your world, you're changing the world. And I believe that that's what women are here to do, to change the world. If you are feeling the pull, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, to change your world, to change what your world is feeling like, to really get your head around what your purpose and your passion in this life is, I encourage you to sign up for a discovery call with me to see if inner voice coaching is right for you. And listen, don't make assumptions about what it is or what it isn't. Just try it. It's 20 minutes, no risk, all free. And if it works for you, it will be great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, because then we just got to spend 20 minutes connecting with each other. So the link for that is kellycovert.com/discovery. And I cannot wait to talk with you. Remember, you matter. We all matter. We are all important, and we have a role to play in this world. We have a purpose to fulfill. And you are worthy.